I've worked at the McDonald's on the outskirts of town for years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Late-night drunks stumbling in for a late-night snack, rowdy kids making a mess in the play place. Nothing really fazed me anymore. But one eerie night would change that forever. It was a stormy evening, rain pounding against the windows like a desperate plea for shelter. The usual hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to be a little more ominous that night, casting unsettling shadows on the yellow and red walls. I was in the back, wiping down the counters, when I heard the bells on the entrance chime. I glanced up and froze. There, standing at the threshold, was a man in a Joker costume straight out of some nightmarish rendition of the character. His makeup was a grotesque mockery of a smile, his eyes shadowed with dark circles that gave off an unsettling aura. My heart raced as he sauntered in, the bells jingling eerily with each step. "Evening, friend," he drawled in a voice that sent shivers down my spine. It was like he was trying to imitate the Joker's manic tone, but it came off as something altogether more unsettling. He flashed that twisted grin, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I mustered a nervous smile. "Hello there. Can I help you with anything?" He didn't answer, just continued to stare at the menu, his gaze lingering on the items as if he was deciphering some hidden meaning within them. I watched from a distance, my hands gripping the damp rag tightly. After what felt like an eternity, he finally ordered a simple cheeseburger and a small Coke. I rang up the order, my fingers fumbling on the keys. He handed me a crumpled bill that was damp from the rain outside. As I gave him his change, he held onto my hand for a fraction of a second longer than necessary, his fingers cold and clammy. He found a seat in the corner, the dim light accentuating the menacing contours of his makeup. I tried to focus on my work, but my eyes kept darting back to him. He didn't eat, just stared at his food as if it held some profound revelation. I watched in morbid fascination as he slowly picked up the burger, his gloved fingers caressing the bun in an almost loving manner. Then, with a suddenness that made me jump, he burst into laughter. Not a joyful laugh, but a haunting, maniacal cackle that echoed through the nearly empty restaurant. My heart pounded as I saw a few other patrons exchange uncomfortable glances before hastily leaving. My manager, sensing something was off, emerged from the back, his eyes widening as they fell on the Joker-like figure in the corner. The man's laughter died down as he locked eyes with my manager, and for a moment, the air felt electric with tension. Without a word, the man stood up, leaving the untouched food behind. He walked toward the exit, each step deliberate, and as he passed my manager, he whispered something that sent a shiver down my spine. My manager's face paled, and he nodded, his eyes locked onto the man's retreating figure. As the door chimed closed behind him, a heavy silence settled over the restaurant. My manager turned to me, his expression grim. "Lock up, we're closing early tonight," he said, his voice unsteady. I nodded, my hands trembling as I went about the task of shutting down the restaurant. The rain continued to pour outside, mixing with the unease that had settled in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just brushed against something truly malevolent, something that had no place in the mundane world of fast food. And as I turned off the last light and locked the door, I couldn't help but wonder if the Joker-like figure was just a man in a costume or something more sinister. A glimpse into the darkness that lingered in the hidden corners of the night. I had just started my evening shift, readying myself for the usual stream of hungry customers. The air was filled with the tantalizing aroma of fries and sizzling burgers, a symphony of fast food delights. Little did I know, this night would take an unsettling turn. As the clock ticked towards midnight, the restaurant began to thin out, the usual dinner rush gradually subsiding. I was wiping down the counters, lost in my own thoughts, when a woman strode in. Her appearance was unremarkable, middle-aged, disheveled hair, and eyes that seemed to hold a flicker of desperation. She approached the counter, her gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "I want a cheeseburger, extra cheese," she demanded, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "Of course," I replied with a practiced smile. I punched in the order and turned to start preparing it. The soft sizzle of the patty filled the air as I worked efficiently, slapping on an extra slice of cheese before wrapping it up neatly. I handed her the tray, and that's when things took an eerie turn. She stared at the burger, her eyes narrowing as if scrutinizing every detail. "Is this extra cheese?" she snapped, her tone dripping with contempt. I blinked, caught off guard by her sudden anger. "I apologize if it's not to your satisfaction. Would you like me to add another slice?" Her lips curled into a menacing smile, and she leaned closer to the counter. "You don't understand. I need extra cheese. You see, my son loved extra cheese. He's not here anymore, but he deserves his favorite, doesn't he?" Her words hung in the air like a sinister mist, sending a chill down my spine. I couldn't fathom the depth of her grief, or what had driven her to this bizarre obsession. But something about her intensity made my stomach churn with unease. "I'm truly sorry for your loss," I said softly, trying to diffuse the situation. "I'll be happy to add more cheese for you." Her eyes remained fixed on me, unblinking, as if searching for any hint of insincerity. With a slow nod, she finally backed away from the counter, returning to her seat in a corner booth. As I prepared the burger once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had become entangled in something far more disturbing than a simple meal request. I handed her the burger with the added cheese, and she accepted it with a disturbing mixture of gratitude and bitterness. She walked back to her booth and unwrapped the burger with a meticulousness that sent shivers down my spine. Then, in a sudden and unsettling movement, she lunged forward, launching the burger at me. I stumbled back, narrowly avoiding the projectile, as the mess splattered across the counter. "You ruined it!" she screamed, her voice a haunting mixture of anger and anguish. My heart raced as I struggled to comprehend the situation. The other customers had retreated, leaving the two of us locked in this disturbing confrontation. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I stammered, fear and confusion intertwining in my words. With an abrupt movement, she lunged over the counter, her eyes wild and frenzied. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding like a drum. But before she could reach me, a security guard who had been quietly observing the situation stepped in, restraining her with a firm grip. As they struggled, her eyes locked onto mine, a mix of desperation and madness swirling within them. "He deserved extra cheese," she hissed, her voice laced with a chilling determination. The police arrived shortly after, and the woman was escorted away, her screams fading into the night. The restaurant fell into an eerie silence, the atmosphere heavy with the remnants of the unsettling encounter. In the aftermath, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had brushed against something far more sinister than a simple complaint about extra cheese. It was a stark reminder that even the most ordinary places could harbor the most unsettling stories, lurking just beneath the surface of the mundane. It was a chilly, moonless night when my late-night cravings led me to the familiar glow of the McDonald's sign. The empty parking lot seemed eerily quiet, but my growling stomach drowned out any sense of unease. As I stepped inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh, unnatural glow on the empty tables and chairs. The usual chatter and laughter that filled the air during the day were conspicuously absent. The only sound was the faint hum of the soda machines, and my footsteps echoed through the deserted dining area. The cashier, a tired-looking young woman, gave me a forced smile as I placed my order, her eyes darting around as if searching for something, or someone. As I waited for my food, a feeling of unease settled over me. It was as if I wasn't alone. My gaze shifted to the corner booth, where a silhouette sat hunched over, facing away from me. I could barely make out the details, but something about the figure's posture seemed off. I tried to brush it off as a trick of the dim lighting, but the feeling persisted. I received my order and retreated to a table near the window, keeping my eyes on the figure in the corner. I took a bite of my burger, but the taste turned to ashes in my mouth as I watched the silhouette slowly stand up. With a shiver down my spine, I realized that the figure had no discernible features, just a shadowy mass. As the figure moved closer to the counter, I strained my ears and caught faint whispers carried by the still air, words I couldn't quite decipher, almost like a distant conversation that I shouldn't be privy to. The cashier's expression had turned from fatigue to fear. Her eyes locked onto the shadowy presence that seemed to defy explanation. With a sudden, eerie swiftness, the figure vanished from sight. I blinked, convinced that my tired mind was playing tricks on me. The cashier's eyes widened, and she rushed to the corner booth, her voice trembling as she called out a name that was met with silence. The booth was empty, the air heavy with a sense of foreboding. Unable to shake off the unsettling encounter, I hurriedly finished my meal and made my way to the exit. The cashier's gaze followed me, and just before I stepped out, she grabbed my arm, her fingers trembling. She leaned in and whispered, "You're not the first to witness. Whatever that is, be careful out there." As I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into a realm beyond understanding, a place where the boundary between the living and the unknown was blurred. The memory of that night haunted my dreams, and the whispers I had heard seemed to echo in my mind, a chilling reminder that even in the most mundane of places, there could exist a darkness beyond comprehension.